You're being manipulated daily and don't see it. Advertisers control your purchasing through scarcity manufacturing. Politicians dictate your opinions through social proof weaponization. Colleagues extract favors through reciprocity exploitation. Even friends influence decisions through liking principle abuse. They control your decisions, emotions, behaviors through psychological techniques you don't recognize because you've never studied the science of influence. Meanwhile, those who understand manipulation defend themselves ruthlessly and deploy ethical influence when necessary, protecting their interests. Your ignorance of manipulation psychology makes you the perfect victim, compliant, predictable, controllable. Today you learn ruthless manipulation mastery that makes control inevitable, not for exploitation, but for defense and strategic influence when stakes demand it. Understanding manipulation psychology is about defense and strategic influence in high-stakes contexts, not unethical exploitation. Learning these techniques allows you to recognize when you're being manipulated and defend yourself, plus deploy ethical influence protecting your interests when necessary. This isn't about becoming manipulative sociopath. This is about understanding psychological influence so you're not defenseless victim while others control you unknowingly. Ethical use means defensive recognition always, offensive deployment only when protecting legitimate interests through honest persuasion, not deceptive manipulation. I am Niccolo Machiavelli. Throughout The Prince, I documented influence techniques that effective rulers used to maintain power and achieve objectives. Chapter 18 discussed appearing virtuous while acting pragmatically. Chapter 17 explained using fear strategically. These weren't evil tactics. They were realistic understanding of human psychology applied to governance. Modern influence psychology research by Robert Cialdini and others has scientifically validated what I observed. Humans are predictably influenced through specific psychological triggers that bypass rational analysis. Cialdini's research on influence principles, reciprocity, scarcity, social proof, authority, consistency, liking, demonstrates that these triggers are hardwired through evolution and cultural conditioning, making them powerful influence tools. Your vulnerability to these techniques isn't weakness, it's human nature. But understanding them transforms you from manipulated victim to defended strategist who recognizes influence attempts and deploys ethical persuasion when necessary. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose dark intelligence over blind trust. 1. The reciprocity exploitation that creates obligation. The first principle is reciprocity exploitation, understanding that humans feel powerful psychological obligation to reciprocate favors, gifts, or concessions, creating leverage over their future behavior. Give something first, even something small and unsolicited, and most people feel compelled to give back, often disproportionately. Manipulators weaponize this by giving strategically to create obligation they later exploit for larger returns. Think about how reciprocity controls you currently. Free samples at stores. You feel obligated to buy after accepting sample, even though you didn't want it. Colleague does unsolicited favor. You feel obligated to help them later, even when inconvenient. Someone makes concession in negotiation. You feel compelled to reciprocate, conceding more than you planned. Each instance is reciprocity, trigger controlling your behavior through psychological obligation. Here's reciprocity exploitation. Give something of relatively low cost to you, but perceived value to target. Favor, gift, concession, information. This creates psychological debt they feel obligated to repay. Later, request something of higher value than what you gave. Reciprocity, obligation, makes them likely to comply, even though exchange is objectively unequal, because psychological debt overrides rational cost-benefit analysis. When you're unaware of reciprocity manipulation, you're controlled by anyone who gives you anything, creating obligation you didn't choose. When you understand reciprocity, you recognize manipulation attempts and either refuse initial gifts to prevent obligation or consciously separate receiving from any obligation to reciprocate. This awareness is defense against exploitation through manufactured debt. The defensive strategy is recognizing unsolicited favors as potential manipulation. Someone gives you gift or does unsolicited favor. Before accepting, consider whether this creates unwanted obligation. If yes, politely decline or explicitly clarify that acceptance creates no future obligation. This protects you from reciprocity trap while allowing genuine gift acceptance when appropriate. Offensive strategy is strategic giving. When you need compliance, give first strategically. Help colleague with small task creating obligation before requesting larger favor. Make small concession in negotiation, triggering reciprocity that gains larger concession. Provide valuable information creating debt that gets repaid with action you need. This isn't manipulation if what you're ultimately requesting is reasonable and honest. It's ethical influence using reciprocity to facilitate agreement. Most people are controlled by reciprocity without awareness, getting exploited repeatedly by strategic givers. Strategic people recognize reciprocity, manipulation defending themselves, while deploying ethical reciprocity influence when necessary. Your awareness determines whether reciprocity controls you or you deploy it strategically for legitimate objectives. I want you to drop this. I recognize reciprocity manipulation. Obligation doesn't control me. 2. The scarcity manufacturing that triggers urgency. The second principle is scarcity manufacturing, understanding that perceived scarcity triggers urgency and desire even when scarcity is artificially manufactured. Humans evolved to value scarce resources, making scarcity powerful influence trigger. Manipulators create artificial scarcity through limited time offers, limited quantity claims, exclusive access restrictions, making you want things you didn't want before scarcity framing. Think about scarcity controlling your decisions. Limited time offer makes you buy immediately, despite no actual need. Only 3 left triggers purchase you weren't planning. Exclusive members only makes you want access you didn't care about before exclusivity. Each instance is manufactured scarcity, hijacking your decision-making through artificial urgency that bypasses rational evaluation. Here's scarcity manufacturing. Take any offer, product, opportunity, and frame it as scarce. Limited time availability, limited quantity remaining, exclusive access for select people only. This scarcity framing increases perceived value and triggers urgency to act before scarcity makes opportunity unavailable. The actual scarcity may be completely manufactured, but psychological trigger is identical to genuine scarcity. When you're unaware of scarcity manipulation, you make urgent decisions based on manufactured scarcity that wouldn't survive rational evaluation without time pressure. When you understand scarcity, you recognize artificial urgency and force yourself to evaluate whether you'd want this opportunity if it were abundantly available without scarcity. This question reveals whether desire is genuine or manufactured through scarcity trigger. The defensive strategy is the abundance question. Whenever you feel urgency from scarcity claims, would I want this if it were unlimited and available forever? If answer is no, scarcity is manipulating you into wanting something you genuinely don't want. This question neutralizes scarcity trigger, allowing rational evaluation. Offensive strategy is ethical scarcity framing. When you have legitimate limited offer, frame scarcity honestly. Real limited time offer due to actual constraints. Communicate deadline honestly. Genuine limited quantity. State truthfully how many available. Actual exclusive opportunity. Explain legitimate exclusivity. This isn't manipulation if scarcity is real. It's honest communication helping people understand genuine constraints, motivating timely decisions. Most people are controlled by manufactured scarcity, making urgent decisions they later regret. Strategic people recognize artificial scarcity, defending rational decision-making while using honest scarcity framing when legitimate constraints exist. Your awareness determines whether scarcity manipulates you or you communicate genuine scarcity ethically. I want you to drop this. Manufactured scarcity doesn't control me. I evaluate rationally. 3. The social proof weaponization that influences crowds. The third principle is social proof weaponization, understanding that humans look to others' behavior to determine correct action, especially in uncertain situations. Everyone else is doing it triggers conformity, even when crowd behavior is irrational or manufactured. Manipulators create false social proof through fake testimonials, paid crowds, manufactured consensus, making you conform to behavior that serves their interests. Think about social proof controlling your behavior. Restaurant with line outside seems more desirable than empty competitor. Product with many reviews gets purchased over equally good product with few reviews. Political position held by perceived majority seems more legitimate. Each instance is social proof, bypassing your independent evaluation, making crowd behavior determine your choices. Here's social proof weaponization. Create appearance that many people are already doing desired behavior. Fake testimonials, paid audience appearing enthusiastic, manufactured statistics showing popularity. This false social proof triggers conformity in real audience, who assume if many others are doing it, it must be correct or desirable behavior. The social proof may be completely fabricated, but psychological trigger is identical to genuine crowd behavior. When you're unaware of social proof manipulation, you conform to manufactured consensus that may be completely fabricated or paid for. When you understand social proof, you recognize potential falsification and force yourself to evaluate independently. Would I want this regardless of what others are doing? This question separates genuine preference from manufactured conformity. The defensive strategy is independent evaluation. Whenever you feel influenced by what others are doing, verify whether social proof is genuine or manufactured. Are those testimonials real or paid? Is that crowd organic or hired? Are those statistics accurate or fabricated? Force independent evaluation. Do you actually want this based on your criteria, not crowd behavior? Offensive strategy is ethical social proof. When you have genuine positive results from real people, showcase honestly. Real customer testimonials, share with attribution. Actual user base, communicate numbers honestly. Genuine positive outcomes, document transparently. This isn't manipulation if social proof is real. It's honest communication, helping people see that others genuinely benefit from what you're offering. Most people are controlled by manufactured social proof, conforming to fabricated consensus. Strategic people verify social proof authenticity, defending independent judgment, while showcasing genuine positive outcomes when they exist. Your critical evaluation determines whether false social proof manipulates you or you communicate real results honestly. I want you to drop this. Manufactured consensus doesn't control me. I judge independently. 4. The authority signal hijacking that commands obedience. The fourth principle is authority signal hijacking, understanding that humans automatically defer to perceived authority even when authority is illegitimate or signals are falsified. Titles, credentials, uniforms, confident presentation all trigger obedience, even when the authority is fake or irrelevant to context. Manipulators hijack authority signals, creating false expertise that commands compliance you wouldn't give to same person without authority signals. Think about authority signals controlling your obedience. Someone with doctor title gets automatic credibility even in unrelated fields. Person in professional uniform receives compliance even without verification. Confident presentation makes claims seem authoritative even without evidence. Each instance is authority signal bypassing your critical evaluation, making you obey based on appearance, not legitimate expertise. Here's authority hijacking. Display authority signals even when illegitimate. Use impressive titles, wear professional attire, present with extreme confidence, cite credentials real or fabricated. These signals trigger automatic deference, making people comply without verifying whether authority is legitimate or relevant. The authority may be completely fake, but psychological trigger is identical to genuine expertise. When you're unaware of authority manipulation, you defer to false authorities making decisions based on illegitimate expertise. When you understand authority hijacking, you verify credentials, check relevance of expertise to current context, evaluate substance, not just presentation. This verification protects you from false authority exploitation. The defensive strategy is authority verification. Whenever you feel influenced by someone's authority, verify credentials are real and relevant. Is that title legitimate? Is their expertise actually applicable to this specific context? Does the substance of their argument hold up independent of authority signals? Separate legitimate expertise from authority signal manipulation. Offensive strategy is ethical authority building. When you have genuine expertise, communicate credentials honestly and present professionally. Real qualifications, state accurately. Actual experience, describe truthfully. Relevant expertise, explain why your knowledge applies to this specific context. This isn't manipulation if authority is real. It's honest communication helping people understand your legitimate qualifications. Most people defer to fake authorities controlled by hijacked authority signals. Strategic people verify authority legitimacy, defending critical evaluation while building genuine expertise. They communicate honestly. Your verification determines whether false authority manipulates you or you establish real credibility ethically. I want you to drop this. False authority doesn't control me. I verify legitimacy always. 5. The commitment consistency trap that locks decisions. The fifth principle is commitment consistency exploitation. Understanding that humans feel powerful psychological pressure to remain consistent with previous commitments even when circumstances change, making consistency irrational. Make someone commit to small initial position and they'll maintain consistency even when that position leads them somewhere they wouldn't have agreed to initially. Manipulators secure small commitments that lock you into larger commitments through consistency pressure. Think about consistency controlling your decisions. You publicly state position. Now you defend it even when evidence shows you're wrong because changing position feels like inconsistency. You make small commitment. Now you accept larger related commitment because refusing feels inconsistent with initial agreement. You identify with label. Now you behave according to that label, even when behavior is against your interests. Each instance is consistency trap controlling behavior through previous commitment. Here's commitment trap. Secure small initial commitment from target. Get them to agree to minor request. Accept small label or take tiny action aligned with your ultimate objective. Once they've made this initial commitment, request progressively larger commitments that are consistent with initial small commitment. Consistency pressure makes them likely to comply with larger requests because refusing feels psychologically inconsistent with their previous commitment. When you're unaware of commitment manipulation, you're controlled by past commitments that lock you into courses of action you wouldn't choose if evaluating fresh. When you understand consistency trap, you recognize that changing your mind based on new information is rationality, not weakness, that consistency with bad initial commitment is worse than inconsistency that corrects error. The defensive strategy is commitment audit. Whenever you feel pressure to remain consistent, ask whether your previous commitment was based on complete information and whether circumstances have changed. Am I maintaining this position because it's actually correct, or because I feel pressure to be consistent with my past statement? This question liberates you from consistency trap, allowing rational re-evaluation. Offensive strategy is ethical commitment building. When seeking agreement, start with small, reasonable requests that establish initial commitment, then build to larger requests that are logically consistent. Initial small commitment. Ensure it's genuinely reasonable and beneficial. Larger subsequent requests. Ensure they're logically consistent extensions, not manipulative escalations. This isn't manipulation if progression is honest. It's building agreement through natural progression. Most people are trapped by consistency pressure, maintaining bad commitments because inconsistency feels uncomfortable. Strategic people recognize consistency trap, allowing rational re-evaluation while building agreements through honest, logical progression. Your willingness to change based on evidence determines whether consistency trap controls you or you build legitimate agreements progressively. I want you to drop this. Consistency trap doesn't control me. I re-evaluate rationally. 6. The liking principle abuse that disarms defenses. The sixth principle is liking principle exploitation, understanding that people are dramatically more compliant with requests from people they like, and likability can be manufactured through specific techniques. Manipulators manufacture liking through compliments, finding similarities, physical attractiveness, association with positive things, making you like them, and therefore more likely to comply with requests you'd refuse from someone you don't like. Think about liking controlling your compliance. Attractive salesperson gets sale you wouldn't give to unattractive person. Colleague who complimented you gets favor you'd refuse to others. Person who shares your interests receives agreement you'd deny to dissimilar person. Each instance is manufactured liking bypassing rational evaluation of request merit making, who asks matter more than what they're asking. Here's liking exploitation. Manufacture liking through specific techniques. Give sincere-seeming compliments. Emphasize similarities, even superficial ones. Associate yourself with positive things target already likes. Present attractively. Mirror their body language, creating unconscious rapport. Once liking is established, make requests that benefit from lowered critical evaluation that liking creates. Target complies because they like you, not because request has merit. When you're unaware of liking manipulation, you comply with requests from people who've manufactured your liking through calculated techniques. When you understand liking principle, you recognize manufactured rapport and force yourself to evaluate request independent of how much you like requester. Would I agree to this if someone I neither like nor dislike asked? This question neutralizes liking influence. The defensive strategy is merit-based evaluation. Whenever someone you like makes request, consciously separate how much you like them from whether request has actual merit. Am I agreeing because this is good decision or because I like this person? This separation protects you from compliance based solely on manufactured liking. Offensive strategy is genuine rapport building. When seeking agreement, build authentic connection through honest compliments, discovering real similarities, authentic positive association. This isn't manipulation if rapport is genuine. It's building real relationship that naturally facilitates cooperation because people prefer working with those they genuinely connect with versus strangers. Most people comply based on liking controlled by manufactured rapport techniques. Strategic people evaluate merit independent of liking while building genuine connections that facilitate honest cooperation. Your ability to separate liking from merit determines whether manufactured rapport manipulates you or you build real relationships ethically. I want you to drop this. Manufactured liking doesn't control me. I evaluate merit independently. 7. The emotional contagion. Control that spreads feelings. The seventh principle is emotional contagion weaponization. Understanding that emotions spread unconsciously between people, like viruses making you feel emotions that serve manipulators' interests. Display specific emotion intensely, and nearby people unconsciously mirror that emotion, enabling control of group mood, decision-making, and behavior through strategic emotional display. Think about emotional contagion controlling your feelings. Anxious person makes you feel anxious even when you had no reason for anxiety. Excited person makes you feel excited about something you weren't interested in. Angry person triggers your anger even when you weren't angry before interaction. Each instance is emotional contagion, making you feel emotions that aren't based on your circumstances but caught from others like psychological virus. Here's emotional contagion exploitation. Deliberately display emotion you want others to feel. Enthusiasm to make group excited about your proposal. Anxiety to make them worried about threat you're presenting. Confidence to make them feel certain about uncertain situation. Emotional contagion makes nearby people unconsciously mirror your displayed emotion, often without awareness they're being emotionally influenced. This emotion control enables behavioral control because emotions drive decisions. When you're unaware of emotional contagion, you catch emotions from manipulators making decisions based on feelings they deliberately infected you with. When you understand emotional contagion, you recognize when your emotions may be caught rather than authentically arising from your circumstances. This awareness allows conscious emotion regulation independent of others' emotional displays. The defensive strategy is emotion source awareness. Whenever you feel strong emotion, ask whether this emotion is genuinely arising from your circumstances or potentially caught from someone nearby who's displaying it intensely. Was I feeling this before interacting with this person, or did this emotion emerge during interaction? This question reveals potential emotional contagion, allowing conscious regulation. Offensive strategy is authentic emotional leadership. When group mood is counterproductive, display genuine emotion that would serve group better. Calm confidence when group is anxious, measured concern when group is recklessly optimistic, authentic enthusiasm when group is unmotivated. This isn't manipulation if emotion is genuine. It's emotional leadership helping group achieve better collective emotional state. Most people are controlled by emotional contagion, catching manipulated feelings. Strategic people recognize potential emotional infection, defending conscious emotion regulation, while displaying authentic emotions that serve legitimate group objectives. Your emotional awareness determines whether contagion controls you or you lead emotionally with authenticity. I want you to drop this. Emotional contagion doesn't control me. My feelings are mine. 8. The choice architecture that predetermines outcomes. The eighth principle is choice architecture manipulation. Understanding that how choices are presented dramatically influences which option people select, even when options remain identical. Manipulators structure choice presentation, making their preferred option appear most attractive through default settings, option ordering, framing, and context manipulation, predetermining your decision while maintaining illusion of free choice. Think about choice architecture controlling your decisions. Default option gets selected because changing requires effort. First or last option in list gets chosen disproportionately due to primacy, recency effects. Option framed as preventing loss gets chosen over identical option framed as achieving gain due to loss aversion. Expensive option makes moderate option seem reasonable even when moderate option is actually expensive. Each instance is choice architecture, predetermining your decision through presentation, not content manipulation. Here's choice architecture exploitation. Structure choice presentation to make preferred option most likely to be selected. Make it default, requiring effort to choose alternatives. Position it first or last in sequence. Frame it as preventing loss rather than achieving gain. Surround it with extreme options, making it seem moderate. These architectural choices guide decision toward preferred outcome while maintaining appearance that chooser is deciding freely based on preferences. When you're unaware of choice architecture, you're controlled by presentation structure, making you choose what architect intended while believing you decided independently. When you understand architecture manipulation, you recognize structural influences and force yourself to evaluate options independent of how they're presented. Which option would I choose if presented differently? This question neutralizes architectural influence. The defensive strategy is architecture awareness. Whenever making decision from presented options, recognize potential architectural manipulation in how options are structured. Why is this option default? Why this ordering? Why this framing? Mentally restructure choice presentation. Imagining different architecture, then evaluate which option you genuinely prefer, independent of presentation structure. Offensive strategy is ethical architecture. When presenting choices, structure architecture that guides toward genuinely beneficial option while maintaining honest presentation. Make genuinely best option default if that serves chooser's interests. Frame honestly, emphasizing real benefits. Present full range of real options without manipulation through false extremes. This isn't manipulation if architecture serves choosers' genuine interests. It's helpful guidance through well-structured presentation. Most people are controlled by choice architecture, believing they choose freely, while presentation predetermines decisions. Strategic people recognize architectural influence, defending independent evaluation, while structuring choices helpfully when presenting options honestly. Your architectural awareness determines whether presentation controls you or you guide others ethically through honest structure. I want you to drop this. Choice architecture doesn't control me. I evaluate independently always. You are no longer someone manipulated daily without awareness. You're not someone controlled by reciprocity, obligation you didn't choose. You're not someone triggered by manufactured scarcity into urgent decisions. You're not someone conforming to fabricated social proof. You're not someone deferring to false authority signals. You're not someone trapped by consistency with bad initial commitments. You're not someone complying based on manufactured liking. You're not someone catching manipulated emotions. You're not someone controlled by choice architecture. You are someone whose manipulation mastery makes control inevitable. Control over yourself through defense, and control over outcomes through ethical influence. Who recognizes reciprocity manipulation, defending against obligation, while deploying ethical reciprocity when appropriate. who identifies manufactured scarcity, evaluating rationally while communicating genuine constraints honestly. Who verifies social proof authenticity, judging independently while showcasing real results transparently. Who confirms authority legitimacy critically while building genuine expertise. Who escapes consistency trap through rational re-evaluation while building legitimate agreements progressively. Who evaluates merit independent of liking while building authentic rapport. Who regulates emotions consciously while leading emotionally with authenticity. Who recognizes choice architecture while structuring choices helpfully and honestly. Your understanding of manipulation psychology transforms you from defenseless victim to defended strategist who recognizes influence attempts protecting yourself while deploying ethical persuasion, serving legitimate interests through honest techniques. You understand these principles not for exploitation, but for defense and strategic influence when stakes demand protecting what matters through psychological understanding. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. I recognize manipulation always. Defense is automatic. Ethical influence serves my legitimate interests ruthlessly. Subscribe because we're teaching psychological defense against manipulation while enabling ethical influence protecting your interests. Like if you're ready to stop being controlled unknowingly and start recognizing influence techniques, defending yourself effectively. Share with someone being manipulated daily without awareness, needing defensive knowledge urgently. You were manipulated daily through techniques you didn't recognize. Today, you learned manipulation mastery, making you defendable against exploitation and capable of ethical influence. When protecting legitimate interests demands psychological understanding, applied ruthlessly but honestly.